everybody, hello, long time no see. It's Haylee here from Cassie's workshop. We have started off a cabinet and the intention is to paint this panel over here. As I announced earlier in the month, this month is all about tool paint. So many of you know that I am a stockist for Granny B. So this month I really wanted to showcase the product. It really is a lovely product to work with, and lots and lots of features, lots of colors, and many different products in their range. So the intent of this piece is really also just to showcase a newer product in their range called Gilder's paste. How snazzy is that? So there's a range of different colors. This particular one is a very sassy gold, and I'm going to be using this on the accent areas. And this is a really old TV cabinet in Boya. It has already been painted on the inside. We have sanded it down, primed it, and it's this is pretty much the last panel that I have to do before we reattach the hardware and then fiddle around with the Gilder's paint. It has been primed, and we've done a base coat with the Hurricane Grey, the Granny B's Hurricane Grey. So it's quite a nice mid grey, great to work with, and so we've used that as sort of like an undercoat. And then we've been fiddling around with a whole bunch of other colors on top, and that's where the exciting part for me comes in. And one of the colors is Dove Grey, which is almost a black. So it's a really, really, really deep charcoal. We are then including some Blueberry Pie, which is this color. I'm really chuffed with how it's turned out, by the way. So Blueberry Pie, I was concerned it would be a little bit dark, but when you mix in the Dove Grey with this Blueberry Pie, it softens it out beautifully. And then for a little dash of, or a lighter shade, we've gone with Vanilla Cream. So it's an off-white, it's the lightest off-white in their range. It's really, really fabulous. You probably can't see it so well on video, but a creamy off-white. And it lightens up everything, but it doesn't give that, it gives it more of a pastel hint than like a stark white. Let me give you a quick tour of what we've done so far. Okay, so there we go, this is the one door. Now on the inside we've gone with a matte grey on the doors, and then a little bit of detail on the inside of the cupboard over here and down below, and then you can see the detail on the legs as well. So this is all the way around. Let's just open up that door. Okay, there we go. So that should give you a better idea. Okay, so you can see how we've used the various colors and just blended them in very softly, so you don't have that solid color anymore, but we have left it solid on the inside, and we will leave solid on the inside of the doors there as well. So that we're going to try and match up this door to that door. Okay, so brushes. We've got a few brushes that I'm using. One is this smallish painter's brush. I've got a slightly larger painter's brush. I seem to alternate between brushes depending on what I feel like using, and depending on what the piece requires. So different sizes. I've then got something like that, and then the one that I've been using the most is the chalk paint brush. So this is from Granny B's as well. This is primarily what I've been using for the blending. So I'm armed with an assortment of brushes as well as my spray bottle. So what's really cool about the chalk paint is that it reactivates with water. So particularly for the blending, you want a little bit of moisture. So you'll see now how I brush over this and we blend in the streaks. So we put on quite a solid color, and then we use the spray bottle to moisten the brush. You'll see what happens if there's too much water on the brush. The paint kind of just drips down, which you don't want. And so just a little bit, it's often just a squirt or two, just to moisten up the brush again, and that seems to work quite well. Okay, so we're going to start with a little bit of the Dove Grey. So I'm going to let you just focus on here while I move around and paint. Okay. Alright, so we're going to start off with a little bit of the Dove Grey and really just apply it to the axe. So for this purpose I've been using the inside of the lid because there is paint there already. So this for me helps because I'm really just using very small amounts. So you can see there, like that's it. Okay, there's a little bit of remnant of vanilla cream on there as well, but I'm using it. Alright, so to start off, I'm going to really just streak down like this. Blueberry pie, using the same brush. Ordinarily I wouldn't do this, guys, so because we're using one brush, but I'm using the inside of the lids and I'm aware of that, so it's very small amounts. I am using the same colors, and when I'm done with this I'm probably just going to rinse off the lid. So, because I don't want to put that back in, obviously. I wouldn't go like this and do the double dipping thing where you're using the same brush and you are dipping into two different containers. That is a no, okay? Because we don't want black going into white especially, or white going into black, because that will color through, or will come through when you paint. Okay, the beauty with this blending is if you add too much or too little, it's really not a problem. That's fine. You can see how easy it's blending. The great thing about this brush is that it holds a nice amount. So as opposed to a normal 38, I also have this, which I'm not really using, but this is a regular 38mm blondie brush, and you do have to reload quite a bit when you're painting with this guy, so I quite like the blender brush. So we've got some blue, we've got some charcoal, using the lid again. Okay, so what's nice for me to see is that even though you put on quite a blob in one go, and it blends away quite easily. So if this was dry, it wouldn't provide the same. You'd then basically be dry brushing. You see the streaks, it softens them, but it won't be as beautifully blended as this is now. Okay, so I'm using a combination of the blueberry pie and the vanilla cream, and I'm really just rubbing into the corners over here, so we've got a little bit of a... This is pretty much the only accent that the store has, so I really wanted them to pop a little bit. There's also some really cutie ring handles which are going to go over here, but they are more sort of aged, that sort of antique bronze. Okay, now because this is a smaller area, big brush and small areas don't necessarily work too well together, so I'm using my slightly smaller, it's got a smaller head, so it just blends a little bit easily. We'll blend it a little bit more anyway, but I just want the colors a little muted for now. Can you see it starting to take shape? Different colors, how they're blended in quite nicely, so it creates quite a smoky effect. Okay, so we've been chatting for a little while, and I purposefully left this because I wanted to show you how easy it is to reactivate the paint. So I can see that it is already wet. It's a pretty nippy day in Cape Town, so I'm not too concerned about paint drying fast. Normally in the summertimes it's like roll on, and you've got to get that paint straight on as fast as possible, because as fast as what you're putting on, I mean, your brush and everything is just drying so quickly. Okay, so you'll see even now it's still blending quite easily. Just a tip, guys, when you are blending, you can still see, I'm blending off the piece. Okay, so I'm not stopping just before, and that just allows for a nice smoother finish and a softer blended look. Okay, so my brush is literally going right off the piece. Okay, also, because some of these areas are a little tricky to get into, I'm using my smaller artist brush and also just blending into the corner. Okay, this brush just had quite a bit loaded onto it, so I wanted to get some of it off before I dip into the vanilla cream. I'm working a lot with this blended brush, or the Granny B chalk paint brush. It's really great. It blends so beautifully. So for these small areas over here, I'm using a combination of the blueberry pie and the vanilla cream. So I wanted a little bit of more blue and more of the vanilla cream to show through rather than the darker colors. The beauty with chalk paint, as you all know, is if you make a mistake, you can just paint over it. It's so nice. Okay, so for just a little bit of accent, I've added some vanilla cream over here in the corners. I'm then doing like a little bit of a rotation or a dragging, and this is more of a dry brush, okay? So I'm using a combination of the both. I really just want to move the paint up and down without necessarily blending it. And then a little bit of black, the dove grey in the details. I keep calling it black because it is almost black. See, look how beautifully it blends. I really like that. So we're continuing on this side over here. So we're working with a little bit of the detail this side. Again, just bringing in that dove grey, so it's that darker paint in the accent areas. Okay, so what I'm going to do is continue to work around this. The inside is going to stay the solid grey. So I painted it twice, 2 coats, purposely left it sort of like a washed grey look. Okay, so I didn't want it as solid as the inside, so I've used a little bit more water on my brush. Okay, so we're using for the accent, which is this area over here, we're really just using the vanilla cream, and we are using the blueberry pie. Okay. So it is quite a bright blue, but once you mix it in with the vanilla cream and the dove grey, it softens up so nicely. I also don't mind if a little bit of that brightness comes through. Okay, so specifically for these areas over here, I'm using a little bit of dragging and stippling just to spread the paint around. What really works very well with the blended areas, and because I've used sort of long strokes as opposed to circles, corners become quite tricky. Okay, so this is the smaller brush like this, and that stippling action is quite great to sort of blend in these corner areas without it looking so contrite that you can see where you've made streaks and strokes. Alright, another perk of using this the smaller brush is that you can get into these really tiny areas. So the blended brush is great for a whole bunch of things, and not so much smaller areas. Okay, so you can see here, and I'm really just digging into the corner to ease off that blending. Okay, so for these accent areas, again, I'm using a combination of the blueberry pie and the vanilla cream. Okay, I've hooked up with a little bit of the dove grey, and I'm really just going to use that for the accent areas over here and on top. What's quite nice is if you're wanting to work with accent areas, the smaller the brush, the better. So we've done the outside. I'm quite happy with that. We'll have to wait for this to dry a little bit. So I've got quite a big light in the workshop, and what makes it tricky is that the wet paint literally reflects off the light, so I can't actually see. I have to wait for it to dry really just to see what it's going to look like. But if you do any touch-ups like I just did right now, make sure that you blend that touch-up back into the rest of the piece. So we're going to move over to this side now. What I am going to do is we're going to apply the Gilder's paste, okay? So the Gilder's paste is one of Granny B's new products. It looks like this. So that is their gold. How amazing is that? So this is great for accent pieces. And then we have got a silver. Okay. And so I'm using a combination of the silver. Kind of reminds me of concealer. So instead of double dipping, I'm really going to rub a little bit on my hand. And then, because I want the combination of the colors as opposed to one on top of the other. But very easy to work with. The advantage with combining the silver and the gold is that you don't have that strong, like the gold is really bright and the silver is really bright. So the beauty of combining those two is that you don't have that strong color. What you can also then do is use them separately as well. So like for example, I'm going to do a little bit of gold on this edging over here, and then let's try the silver on top of that. I love silver, so I tend to want to over apply it. Yeah, that's quite lekker. Okay, so I've got like a silvery gold combo going on and I'm really liking it. It applies really easily. Obviously the more you apply, the thicker the contrast. So I've done quite thick at the end and then softer in the middle. So even though they come in really small containers, you use a very small amount and it spreads quite easily. Okay, so gold over there, let's bring in some silver on top of that. Well, so that's quite lekker, guys. It's doing a combination of the silver and the gold. I suppose it depends on the kind of finish you're after. And using very small amounts works quite nicely. Okay, so again, so I'm accenting in the corners close to the embellishment, and then softening it in the middle. Specifically here because I'm really just wanting to highlight the accent areas. I guess it would be quite similar. I'd recommend you get a really soft or small brush with a very sort of very few bristles, so that you have just a softer finish, more of a brush stroke finish. My smaller brush died, so and this brush, which is the next size up that I have, is just it's too big. Also, I want very small amounts. So for my purposes now, fingers fine. Yeah, I must say I'm really liking the combination of the silver and the gold. I'm not sure if it's showing up well enough in the video, but you can definitely see it on the close-up. It's very cool. It's not bright, and the one kind of softens the other one. Okay, so I made an error there with putting too much on. I really just used a cloth and wiped it off. So it's left a little bit left over, but that's fine. That's kind of what I wanted. So just keep that in mind, that if you do put some on, you obviously can use, if you're fast enough, use a cloth and just wipe it off. Alright. So I've done a little bit on the accent of the door as well. Let's do a little bit more on top here. So I'm going to wait for this door to dry before we apply the Gilder wax. I'm just going to give that close up and we're gonna finish up. So let's have a quick squiz. Okay, so you can see a little bit of the combination of the silver and the gold. Remnants of gold. I've also used silver and the gold combination over here. More little bit of gold at the bottom, silver and gold over here, over there, and moving up on that side as well. Alright, so there we go. That's it. Thank you very much everyone for your input and for listening. Any questions, just you can pop them in the comments below and hopefully we'll get all to them a little bit later. If you're catching it on the replay, just hashtag replay so we know that you got it on the replay with your question. Alrighty, cheers everyone. Thanks so much. Bye bye.